to give us a couple of minutes about yourself, and then we'll ask you some questions, and then you can do a wrap-up.
Great. Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here. I am going to go back in time, actually, to talk about this organization. Back in 2004, I was a land use attorney practicing in Socrates and had moved from Boston back home to be closer to my parents. And I had a client who came into my office, unrolled the plans for the Ulster County Jail, and started crying at my desk. He said, "There's beams going through the elevator shafts. How am I supposed to build this?" And I started to get very concerned that we were spending a lot of money on this project called the Ulster County Jail. And that was really the beginning of my interest in county government. I started to look at county government. I saw it was a completely Republican-controlled entity by legislative decision-making. That's how it was run, running a $300 million enterprise by committee. And that was the beginning of my interest in, we've got to change things here. This is insane. And I was looking over the county committee bylaws for the Democratic Committee, and there was a line in there that said the executive committee shall be made of, blah, 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 blah. And there was a line that said the president of the Democratic Women's Club. So I went to John Perry, who was the chair at the time of the committee, and I said, "Who's the Democratic Women's Club?" And he said, "Well, it doesn't exist." Me, Suzanne Hurl, Allison Lee, Patty, I'm trying to remember her name out from Denning, a woman named Julie McQueen, OT Elite, we got together and we said, it exists now. And we elected Julie McQueen as the first president of UCDW, put together the first bylaws, and put her on the committee, on the executive committee of the Democratic Committee. And really the goal was, we have got to change the county legislature. Right. That was done. We flipped the county legislature in 2005. We went on to push for a county executive form of government, change the charter form of government. If things are going to go this badly on a project, we want two things. We want an executive, and we want oversight and a fiscal watchdog. And that's the role I'm playing now. So I had sort of a role at the beginning of this whole enterprise, thinking about we need to have fiscal oversight for projects like the Ulster County Jail. By the way, it went about $30 million over budget, and it was years behind in the making. This is my second tour of duty in county government. I served as the head of economic development from 2009 through 2013, and I was chair of the Ulster County Industrial Development Agency from 2006 to 2008. So I have spent a lot of time thinking about county government. I was not in county government when I decided to run for office. I was the head of something called the Community Foundations of the Hudson Valley, which does grant making in 3 counties. And I read, Trump was president, we were in crisis, right? And I read a book by Anand Girhardis, and it's called Winners Take All. And the premise of the book is private philanthropy and private consulting are scooping up all the good people who want to change the world, and the problems we're facing, like climate change and inequity, are just too big. We have a way to make decisions, joint decisions, and that's messy and ugly, and it's called democracy. And when I read the book, it was like I was being stabbed in the heart. I was like, oh, I'm in the wrong sector. And within a few weeks of that, Elliot Auerbach announced that he was going to go on to be a deputy state controller, and I said, that is a job I'm going to run for. So the controller's office, I've been serving since 2020, since January 2020. We've been able to implement a ton of change that I'm really excited about, including bringing transparency to all county payroll, all county contracts, all county payments. We've been able to do really deep dive audits. For example, our investment audit changed the way the county's invested. We earned $10 million last year in interest income that would not have occurred but for that change. So really proud of the work that we do. However, and I'm going to wrap up because I know that you guys want to get to questions, in 2023 we learned that the finance commissioner, so I'm not the treasurer or the CFO, I'm sort of the internal audit watchdog. The fellow that was in that job, we learned, was a crook. And he was arrested for grand larceny, and he's actually serving his sentence now. He'll be getting out soon. And when that occurred, we realized there's a lot of work that we haven't been able to get done. And he was incredibly resistant to changing anything. I'll give you an example. We still pay every single bill by check. I don't care if it's a 50-cent payment to a vendor, we're cutting a check. That is incredibly expensive. It probably costs between $4 and $7 to write a check. So we have a lot of changes that we still need to make, and having someone that intransigent and difficult in that position really set back some of the work that we'd like to do. And luckily, Jen Metzger has changed the whole team there in finance, and you have people who are like, okay, how do we fix this? And that is really a tremendous asset. And so I'm looking forward to seeing those changes in my next term, and being able to get sort of where we thought we would be several years ago on some of those items. But briefly, the Comptroller's office audits every claim for payment. That's every invoice and every payroll. So we're looking at all that. Did we get what we paid for? Were people paid the correct hours, etc.? We do these deep dive audits like the investment audit, and then we share information out. Transparency and accountability. We're sharing information to the public. We did a report on federal funds impact potential for Ulster County. You know, we report regularly on county finances and the economy. So sort of those three buckets: claims auditing, deep dive auditing, and sharing information to the public. So if you guys are ever working on a grant or something where you need information, call us. We might have it, or we might know where to get it. So you might hear from us.
You mentioned that about the federal funding, and so the first question is, how much of the overall county budget is funded through federal money?
We get between $50 and $60 million in federal money, and the budget's around $440 million. I do think the majority of that money is going to be at risk, and I think even more money is going to be at risk because we receive state funds. And when I say $50 million, that includes grants that come from the state that are ultimately federal. So it really is the full picture of federal. But we receive state support, and the state's budget is 30% federal. So even if it's not a direct federal dollar flowing through, if the state is crimped for resources, it's going to impact how much they push down onto the county in terms of unfunded mandates, or in terms of, you know, them pulling back on grant money. So we stand to lose about $50 million. Now let me just add to that, Jane, to say Ulster County residents receive over $600 million a year in Medicaid benefits, $600 million a year in Medicare benefits, and like $900 million a year in Social Security. So if you are talking to people who are terrified about Social Security or losing their Social Security, they need to know this. 43,000 people just in Ulster County get Social Security. We're not going to just lay down and take it. And if you see those programs be cut, I think what will happen is the state legislature will step in and take extraordinary measures like they did during COVID. I didn't think we could just stop all evictions, just stop all foreclosures, but we did. So you will see measures that we haven't even thought of yet, and I want people to know that, because I'm knocking doors and people are absolutely terrified about losing their benefits. Mm-hmm. And they should know, like, they're not alone. There's going to be, like, statewide decision-making to address issues like this.
Yeah, this is top of mind in most of the questions.
Oh, okay.
Came in. And as a follow to that, have we already in Ulster experienced any cuts or withholding of federal funding in the last, since the inauguration? And if so, approximately how much has been affected and in what areas?
So the county government itself has experienced no cut in federal funds.
Wow.
Because most of that money was already allocated. However, there are organizations right here in New Paltz who lost grants. Historic Huguenot Street lost a grant. Center for Photography at Woodstock lost a grant. Our VI hospital, because of the hiring freeze, had to close an entire wing. So veterans in the Hudson Valley lost an entire 20-bed wing at Castle Point, which we desperately need. People are waiting months and months for appointments. And I think we'll start to see more things trickle down. The food bank of the Hudson Valley has experienced cuts. Yeah. Those cuts have not resulted in stopping the People's Place Market, which I think is a mistake that we made early on thinking that was true, but we are seeing fewer groceries delivered, and I'm hearing from different vendors around the county. For example, one food bank told me they only have potatoes to give out. Wow. Yeah. So we are starting to see those impacts. I cannot quantify that for you at this time, but the county government itself has not lost any money as of this point.
Yeah. Okay, that's good to know at least. Do you have a plan to recommend to the legislature or to the executive for filling specific gaps if there are federal funds withheld? Or is that
There are
not
some,
from you?
no, we might do that. There are some areas that are just too big to fill. I'm going to give you an example. And maybe we will fill it, because we're sitting on a huge fund balance. I was talking about this earlier.
What is it, the fund balance?
I can't tell you because they haven't closed the 24 books,
Okay.
okay? I'm sorry to say. But I think we're closing 24 with a substantial surplus. It's going to add to the fund balance we already have. It's high, historic high. TANF, which is Temporary Aid to Needy Families, which has been at the top of the chopping block for the Republicans. We get $11 million in TANF benefits that flow through Ulster County. So we're paying out TANF benefits $11 million a year. That's a huge gap. If that goes away, you're talking about our most needy families not getting what they need to be able to pay basic bills. Do I think we'll make it up? I think we'll be dipping into fund balance, and we'll be very relieved we have something there, but we cannot go years and years doing that.
And we have 3 more.
Yeah.
Really 4 years.
So I think you will see a depletion of that fund balance. There are no other sources. You know, these are not gaps that philanthropy is going to make up.
That was my next question. Can people get together and these, foundations and, different sectors get together and just source it in some way?
I think you won't see those funds go through county government. I think what you'll see is individual communities work to support their neighbors. And I think that will happen. And of course, we do have the Novo Foundation here in Ulster County, primarily grant making in Kingston, and not really to the outlying areas. So, but I do think you'll see communities rally, just like you did during COVID, where all of a sudden, we had restaurants giving away meals, we had town supervisors driving them around. And I think you'll see that kind of effort, and I think you'll see an effort by religious and community organizations to provide support, but I don't think it's going to be able to make up the gap that we're talking about.
Okay, do we have, or will we have, a platform like the one used for in Duchess, which tracks the federal funds and helps us understand how it's changing, kind of, week to week, or do you see doing something?
Well, actually, Dan copied my report.
Okay.
So, yes, yeah, we will be updating. You're asking, will there be real-time information? Yes, we will absolutely put that out. But I have already talked to Jen Metzger about this. We will not be announcing, my office will not be announcing federal cuts, without the county executive.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? We're going to be coordinated in the way we do it, because I don't want to be sharing misinformation or information that's going to make people nervous or scared if there is already a solution in the works. So we're going to be a coordinated conversation about that. But
very logical.
I can tell you right now, we're both committed to making sure that people know what's happening. Yeah.
Great. That's great. And finally, is there anything else you'd like us to know about you or the Comptroller's office?
Well, I will tell you something about the Comptroller's office. The legislature added a position to our office called a revenue auditor. And we have been interviewing for that position, and we just hired a lovely young woman who went to Round Valley High School, who was at the IRS as a revenue auditor, and she was in her first year of her probationary year, and she was terminated in a very unceremonious way. I mean, the treatment of these federal employees is absolutely heartbreaking. So we are going to be taking a deeper look at revenues, which is not something that we have provided the same kind of oversight for, and I think the timing is really perfect with the loss of these federal revenues. So that's one thing I want to say. Also, the majority of the staff in our office is union-tested staff, civil service, great people, behind the scenes, quiet, hardworking, such a strong team, and I'm just so proud to work with these people every day. We really have great people inside the Comptroller's office. About me personally, I live in Rosendale. My husband has a business in New Paltz, Inquiring Minds Bookstore. I have 3 birth children and a lot of other extra kids around as well. I used to give numbers, but I'm done doing that now because sometimes they just show up and stay for a couple of years. And I am an auntie or high school graduate. All right, so
thank you so much.